I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Answery,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present.
Commissioner Bonnet,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Solis Little,
Here.
Commissioner Rattenbach,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner,
Present.
all present.
Thank you. So then that would bring us to public comment. Please come forward. If anyone wants to call in, the number's 231-256-8109. 231-256-8109.
Good morning. I believe the agenda item number 4 is still on the agenda, which is approval of Leland Township recycling site agreements. And I'm here to address that issue. It's a very peculiar issue because sometimes we public officials in our zealotry become misguided about what we personally want and what the people should be provided with under a Republican form of government. It seems that the process that has got us to this point on number 4 is very questionable, and I think the county needs to find ways on how to do this in a much better way. We respectfully request the Leelanau County Commission to deny the approval of using the Approved Pond Nature Area for a dirty waste recycling site. How can something so non-essential and non-mandated have such a high priority? It seems a violation of the governor's executive orders. Such action will further continue to destroy the proper and intended use of the Approved Pond Nature Area per the Township's 1984 Recreation Plan, which is still in force. It defined all the park sites. The county, Leelanau County, began the destruction of the Approved Pond Nature Area in 1991 by approving the use location of the Leelanau County Leyland Project Sewers Treatment Plant, Lagoon, and Drain Fields. Other sites were available and the county neglected to look at them, even though they were identified by the people. It appears some commissioners, and in District 5, Planning Department members, Solid Waste Council members choose to bully and intimidate Leland Township board members and its Planning Commission. About a year ago, such an appearance was made by the county commissioner to try to discuss this same issue, to approve waste recycling on this site. The township board, after I believe bullying took place, passed this at the July meeting by a vote of only 3-2. Such conduct appears to be a violation of Michigan law, which I believe is interference in township affairs. These methods of apparent abuse does harm to our Lake Leelanau village community. Our Lake Leelanau village community wants no more crap or sewage from Leland village elites dumped in our nature area. Some of the information regarding recycling in Leland Township proposed site locations are fake and false unlawful petitions. Why would you put together a bunch of petitions that are unlawful to try to intimidate and bully the township board members? Why would you do that? Leland Township Planning Commission knows nothing about this yet they have to do something with it. The Planning Commission, I talked to the chairman yesterday. He doesn't know what the hell's happening. The site is located over 4 miles from Leland Village It's located about 1.5 miles from Leelanau Village. The recycling sites, I've witnessed them all, are always dirty. It's difficult to get in the winter. Need necessity is not proven. Difficult to understand the apparent false passion for the environment. No law requires that location to be used. It wastes taxpayers' money. Leland elites are saying that they never go to Traverse City, so they must be really homebound. The Township Board denied this use over a year ago in some action they took. No Leland Township public hearings have ever been held about this for public input. And some further history. The township electors in the summer of 1991 lawfully petitioned for a vote to use the nature area for a treatment facility. The electors denied that use, and the Township Board and the Leelanau County Commissioners ignored that. It was a certified vote, and they ignored it. So I'm asking you again at the end with more information. Sheet number 1 shows a photograph. It's in the lower corner of this whole board that was done in 1991. And we respectfully request the county board deny the use of the Proven Pond Nature Area for waste recycling site. First of all, because it is premature, way premature, and it's unnecessary. Leland County has desecrated it enough. Don't allow Leland Village elites to bully you to harm our Lake Leelanau community by dumping more trash and sewage at that location. Thank you.
Hearing no phone calls, are there any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on then to the purpose of the meeting. The discussion and potential actions. Number 1 is the jury commission vacancy. Commissioner Ankerby.
Move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners appoint June Shaw to the jury commission for the balance of the term ending April 2021.
Report. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So then that brings us to the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund grant.
You want to go first, Steve?
What's that? You're first.
Oh, I am?
On the agenda.
Yeah.
Good morning. There's a Corona Emergency Relief Fund and what it, Coronavirus Supplemental Fund grant, and it's used for law enforcement and also for the courts to prevent the spread of COVID. It provides a lot of different things. It can be personal protection equipment, the plexiglass you have between you. It also helps workers to prevent workers from spreading COVID. What we have proposed is making it so our workers can work remotely. So this would be used through laptops. They would need a mouse because a lot of people like mice instead of the trackpad, headphones with a microphone in it, and then a sleeve to protect the equipment. The laptops would have Windows 10. They'd have Microsoft Office. They would have webcams. A lot of our meetings right now, as you know, are done through Zoom. All of our court hearings are done via Zoom right now. For the PAO, there's 7 of us, so we did 7 laptops, 7 mice, 7 laptop sleeves, and 8 headphones because we have an additional computer that doesn't have it that we use. Excuse me. I'm also here on behalf of 3 other departments. I'm here on behalf of the district court, the circuit court, and the probate family court. What happened is I got this stuff ready, and Ron said, hey, why don't you check out these other places because they're also entitled to this fund as well. And so I put everything together. I've spoken to all the heads of those departments, and this is what they have said. For the district court, 2 sets of these laptops with peripherals. For probate and family court, 5 laptops, and then 6 mice, 6 laptops, 6 headphones, and a printer scanner, and also to reimburse laptop. Judge Kromkowski ordered a laptop so she could work remotely. It's already been paid for. This fund goes to reimburse anything that helps people work remotely. Let me rephrase that. That's what we believe it will do. All of these grants are subject to approval. What will happen, let me continue, sorry, I'm getting all over the place. So the next one is then circuit court, 2 laptops, 2 mice, 2 laptop sleeves, 2 headphones, and reimburse a laptop. The total comes that the bid for all of the new equipment comes to $15,271.18, and then an additional reimbursement of 2 laptops of $3,318.16 for a total of $18,589.34. What we do is we fill out the grant. We have to deliver it by mid-August. In mid-October, they decide whether or not to accept this, and then those funds must be spent by September of 2021. So we don't have to purchase this prior to receiving the grant funds. These are to help us work remotely from March to however long this lasts, essentially. I in no way anticipate, and no department that I've talked to so far wants to purchase these prior to receiving the funds, because it's a lot of money, frankly. So what we are asking to do is, one other thing. There's 3 different funds that this comes out of. The PAO has their own fund, the Sheriff's Department has their own fund, and then the courts have their own fund. The PAO has $19,000, and we are only anticipating using $6,400 of that. And then the courts are combined for $17,000, and combined, I didn't do the math, but it looks like right around $12,000. So they'll be under as well. So that's what we're requesting, to submit that grant information. Each department will do their own. I'm just here on behalf of all of us because the bid was combined, and we just thought it'd be a little bit easier.
I just want to clarify, this is different than the community block grant that the county will be applying for. I received notification, I talked to state officials Monday afternoon, that is completely separate than this. So the amount of money that we have spent, everything we have spent since January 20th will be reimbursable, but through a different grant. So these are separate grants. These are just for the courts and the prosecutors and the sheriff's office. It's completely different. So that's separate from the county money that we may be eligible for. And the county money, we have the ability to funnel that down to the townships and local units of government and fire departments. So I'll be doing that later, but this is completely separate from this, because I know it gets confusing when you have all this federal money and it's different pots and you have to apply it differently every time. So this is completely separate from what the county will be applying for to reimburse us for all of our expenses.
Commissioner Ansel.
I have 2 questions.
Please.
First question is, is all of this in compliance with our computer department as far as what we're buying is consistent with our system and connections and all that kind of stuff? You know, Ron bought off on this.
He did. He was actually the one who told me to go to the other departments.
Okay. So long as, you know, we're not going off in some strange direction that you won't be able to connect to our system or whatever.
I was hoping to buy the Alienware computers, which are gaming computers, but I decided that probably wouldn't be appropriate.
The second question is this grant a competitive grant? Is there any chance that we're not going to get the money?
There is a chance, which is why none of us are going to purchase this equipment beforehand. I'm saying that we need the remote equipment in order to have our employees not be at work, so there's no issue of spreading corona. And that's the angle I'm taking on this. Now, the approval process starts in August and we'll know by October. And again, no department that I've talked to wants to spend this money unless we receive the grant. And since we have till September of 2021 rather than just this year, it's not like we have to buy it and then hope that we get the money. We're gonna get the money and then buy it.
I can follow up on that too, because I've been in so many seminars on this. Yes, there's no guarantee. However, this money has been heavily set aside for Leelanau County. Each county's prosecutor's office, each county sheriff's office, not all of them, I believe 77 of the 83 counties have money set aside if they wish to apply. Now, there's no guarantee because in case everyone applied for the full amount, but the odds are very good that this money will be approved because it's money in a separate line item for Leelanau County in the state of Michigan.
Commissioner Wexler?
Yes, I move to allow the departments to apply for the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund Grant in the combined amount of $18,589.34 for the purchase of described equipment with funds to be expended from the appropriate accounts with reimbursement from the state.
Support.
Commissioner Law?
Yes, thank you. I have some similar questions to Tony's. Are there employees working remotely now?
There are, and a lot of them are using borrowed equipment or purchased equipment that we intend to reimburse. A lot of them are using not only borrowed equipment, but personal equipment. For instance, I'm using my super old laptop at home. I know that, for instance, Noreen Casti's, the magistrate, her laptop is a 1999 Compaq, I want to say. So everyone's either using their personal old stuff, or they're borrowing, or they're or it's already been purchased, essentially. What some of the things that this will do is allow, for instance, in our department, the prosecutors will be able to do a VPN, virtual private network, get into their computer so they can access their information and do it all from home. We have a lot of briefs that we're writing, and so on the days where we're just writing briefs, only one of us has to come in to cover the office, so to speak, while the rest of us are doing our work at home. Additionally, some of these things can be used for, we can forward phone calls to personal cell phones in order for secretaries. They can even work from home and do their stuff from home if they have a VPN, which I've already talked to Ron about, they can do. So a lot of the stuff that we want to do is going to make it so we can work remotely. Everyone, the people who can't work remotely, for instance, in Judge Kromkowski's office, they haven't been included in this because they can't work remotely. And so, like district court, there's only 2 out of the 3 people that we're doing computers for. So we've looked at who can use it, who can't use it, and we've gone with essentially the minimal amount of the people that can use it and work from home and be safe.
Okay. So you mentioned a bid, but these probably didn't have to go out for bid. So did Ron use his usual way of, which is the state?
Yeah, yes, we purchase all through the state process,
Okay.
so that meets the bidding requirements.
So we don't have to wait.
And that confirms Commissioner Angelo's question about the equipment being compatible.
Yeah, okay, and then obviously these will be added to the county's inventory lists.
Honestly, that's above my
Yes,
pay grade.
county's problem.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was the departments or the counties.
All the equipment is covered.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Rex?
I would, one, either ask the motion maker to amend the motion as follows. We, the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners, allow the departments above mentioned to apply for the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund Grant in the combined amount of $18,589.34 for the potential purchase of described equipment upon being awarded the grant. I think that language needs to be in the motion. I understand that our departments have said they won't pre-order. However, the argument can be made that the commissioners approved the purchase of the equipment prior to the grant.
I'm fine with that. I'm in my motion.
Is that okay with the second? Commissioner Redenbach?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Any other questions? I just wondered now that if it changes and the coronavirus is no longer, as deadly as they say it is, and it, because we keep getting different information about this, and we don't really need it even though you're given the grant, are you still gonna purchase them? I mean, if we're not gonna be working remotely?
A lot of our, so first of all, for the PAO, yes, because we are going to be going wireless, we're intending to go paperless as well. So if it's awarded, I know that our office still plans on using it because we'll need it for paperless stuff. And if the feds want to give us it for this, then either way, it's a win-win for the prosecutor's office. As for the other 3 departments, the circuit court, probate family, and the district court, I don't know. I can't speak for their behalf.
Yeah. So, because I mean, I know this is borrowed money.
Sure.
And so if we wouldn't have purchased it, and we really won't purchase it unless we get the grant, and we want to use the borrowed money to buy this stuff, and you're saying they're going to.
Well, the PAO needs to. Because just to give you a little information if you'd like, for the PAO, the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan is planning on creating a paperless system that interacts with other paperless systems. We recently did the Spillman technology for the dispatch and sheriff's department, which comes over to us paperless. The idea is to hopefully in the next year or 2 become paperless upstairs. And so it's something that we would need to do anyways, but now the feds want to give us it before we need it essentially. And so for our office, yes, we would need that anyways.
So you would say the county would purchase it otherwise, or the prosecuting attorney and that would apply to get this regardless if we got the federal money or not?
Yes, it wouldn't be obviously this year, but it would be in the next couple of years, hopefully if Joe's elected.
I just feel like we continue to borrow money from our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and we want them to pay for these things that we don't want to pay for ourselves.
I understand.
And I just have a problem with this continuing. The federal government creates this, I believe, and we're supposed to help be the watchdogs for it, but we don't seem to because it looks like free money.
That's a good point.
I mean, I guess that if we need it, I think the county should be responsible for its own entities, not the federal government borrowing from our great-grandchildren or grandchildren, whoever. So even though I want us to take this free money, I'm not going to vote for this, I would say. Okay, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, do the same sign. The motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then that would bring up the sheriff.
Without going through everything that he did, we were on the list of counties that have available grant money. It's total available is $49,865. It must be targeted towards something that to address the current ongoing pandemic and issues that we've had with it. And we targeted a device that we can use both on the correction side and the law enforcement side. We put in for 2 of them, one to have in the jail and one to have on the roadside. And what it is basically is a automatic system for decontamination. It can be used for cells, complete rooms, vehicles. So if we have a known COVID exposure, somebody that comes into jail, something like that, we can quickly rectify that situation by clearing the room and decontaminating it. The unit is simple to use. There's no training involved except for a video to watch. We've included in the grant a handheld applicator for both units so we can spot do patrol cars or smaller pieces of equipment if we need to. And enough of the environmental friendly vinyl oxide disinfectant that will last us for a long time. So it's the device not only addresses the current situation of COVID-19, but it kills 99.9% of MRSA, HIV, hepatitis, tuberculosis, Ebola, MERS, E. coli, norovirus, H1N1, and salmonella, several other things. So it's something that we think would help us in addressing the current issue and also keeping our employees safe from this point going forward.
I have a couple questions for you. Is there any other emergency unit in our county that has anything like this for decontamination?
The ambulance systems are using ultraviolet or a lighting type system,
Okay.
Which is good for their application in that small box area. I don't know of anybody that has this system within the county.
So is this an aerosol, a light?
It's a fogging system.
It's a
So,
fogging
yeah,
system.
so it's basically a sprayer or a fogger that has it's self-contained, and you have the gallon of stuff that's in it. And you basically enter in what size area that you're doing. So like if you're doing a room, you estimate the square feet, you set it in there, you push a button, you leave, it fogs the area, you wait the necessary time, which is 6 to 10 minutes basically, or it could be longer if it's a big room, up to 30 minutes. Once it's done, you aerate the room and go back in and as normal.
So we could use it in this room?
Yeah, you could use it anywhere.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Hanson.
Do you know any other departments that are using this? Does it work? Have you talked to anybody that actually uses this?
I don't know of anybody locally that use it. There's vast amounts of agencies that do use it. It's the #1 listed product on the EPA's list of decontamination units. So it comes highly recommended from the EPA.
Why this one instead of the ultraviolet light one?
Because #1, this is, like I said, the first one on the EPA, which I take kind of seriously. I think they know what they're talking about. #2, the ultraviolet stuff is proven to be good within like a small contained area, but it's also something that you cannot be exposed to whatsoever. To me, it's dangerous for people to be around. You got to make sure that you know what you're doing. This is something that we can use, put it in there, have it do its job, and it's like I said, it's done then. It's over, and the solution used is environmentally friendly. There's no hazard whatsoever to people or pets or anything like that.
I have the MSDS sheet for the solution, and there is the HMIS rating for health, flammability, reactivity is all 0. There's no PPE recommended that you need to use with it. Eye contact, it may cause mild irritation. Skin contact, it does not cause skin irritation. Inhalation, it does not cause respiratory irritation, Ingestion, it is non-toxic. The only thing they suggest is if you drink it, to drink some water.
Commissioner Wesson.
I move to allow the sheriff's office to submit a CESF grant request in the amount of $35,719.36, and if awarded the grant, allow the purchase of the described equipment with funds to be expended from the account line designated by accounting, with reimbursement to come from the state.
Second.
Any other questions or statements?
again, I mean, I don't think we would buy this equipment otherwise unless they were giving you this grant. You know, has anyone in the jail had coronavirus or been detected of it at all?
So far, we've been fortunate. We've had to decontaminate one or two patrol cars so far.
And we did have one person arrested who, when they arrived at the jail, were showing symptoms. They did have a fever and they did have a cough. At that time, they were not allowed into the facility, and the arresting officer took other actions, so.
I'm going to support this today because I think that this has multiple uses with or without COVID. I think that, as you mentioned, most of the emergency services that are utilized in the townships, they don't have equipment like this. So I think it's important that we have at least some piece of equipment somewhere where the community, if the need arises, can be used. So I think this is a great application of the grant dollars.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 6-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have a review and approval of economic development. Well, I'll just say review of economic development administration grant. Commissioner Solis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask Paul Winston if he would come forward. Paul is going to lead some of our discussion today. We thought it would be helpful to begin with a review of the data. We have analyzed the data from the 2 surveys we did, the internet insufficiency study with home-based businesses and folks working from home during the COVID period, and also a follow-up survey that we did, which was basically to look at the impact of lack of internet services upon job growth, job retention, and job loss. So Paul has joined Lyft about 1.5 years ago. He had called me because he purchased a home and then discovered that the promised capacity of internet did not exist. And so he is a home-based business person himself. So he's been working with our Lyft team and has been a really valuable member of the community and has taken the lead on not only the grant, but also in a lot of the work on the survey itself. So Paul, do you want to lead off and kind of walk us through the survey, and then I'll make a few comments following Paul's presentation, and then we move into review of the grant.
And to advance the slide, should I just say next? Is that the best way? Yeah. Okay. So thank you. Pleasure to be here. I just wanted to start with a little bit of background in that there are a lot of, we all know that internet needs are, felt by residents, schools, businesses, government. But this particular grant is very narrowly from the Economic Development Administration, which is an arm of the Commerce Department. And so it's very focused on business applications. And what you can see in sort of the quotes here is they got some CARES Act funding because they realized that communities were undergoing sort of an economic shock because of coronavirus and stay-at-home orders. Typically, the EDA grants are focused on infrastructure, and this one particularly calls out broadband as an illustration of the kind of projects that the funding would be appropriate for. And then they also very much ask us to, in our proposal, address how our particular project would impact business recovery and resiliency. And so a big part of our proposal that we'll walk through later is really, that's what we aim to address, and to really look at how better internet would help people who suddenly are at home or just have a home-based business or any business to be a little more resilient, particularly when maybe they're not able to do face-to-face interaction with customers, et cetera. So I think it's also notable just to point out, because I know there's been conversation and presentations before the board, there are a lot of alternatives for delivering broadband. And this particular grant requires the applicant to own the equipment that's being funded. So That's a reason why we didn't particularly go down the path of, say, a fiber network or something. We're specifically talking about county-owned towers. There's also a 20% match requirement. So next.
20% match, what was that for?
So for whatever funding that our project costs, I think the EDA, I don't know if that was a hard rule, but basically said we're looking for about a 20% match. And because they're.
Who's going to match that?
So because the county already, in our proposal.
Oh, the towers.
The towers. It's for funding the towers.
That's not on top of the towers, that's all I want to make clear.
No. So that was, yeah, we'll come back to that. So what we sought to do, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence about the need for better internet. We have a comprehensive 2016 survey that was conducted, and we sought to conduct a more timely survey of business internet needs, particularly during COVID. And we went after home-based businesses in particular because they're already experiencing the fact of my business is based in a home, I have poor internet, and how's that being impacted, especially if maybe school kids are home using online learning, et cetera. They also represented small business, which is sort of the heart of the business community in the county. And third, they served as sort of a proxy for suddenly all businesses were home-based businesses because of the shutdown order. So their experience is what we tried to get after. We had a grant from the Edmund F. and Virginia B. Ball Foundation to underwrite the cost of mailing the survey, printing the survey, return envelopes, and we also had an online component. We got a 21% response rate, which is pretty good. And I'll just kind of walk through some of the survey findings. They're within our sort of overall proposal, but we've got these slides here. So, what we found was 94% of the respondents said they do require internet access for their business. We asked about the reliability of the internet, how critical it is to their operation, and 77% said high, 16% medium, 7% low. We also asked if they were satisfied with their current internet, and this was interesting. So we found that in terms of these three elements, the availability of high-speed internet, the speed that people actually get, and then the price, we got a majority of respondents in all of those characteristics that they were dissatisfied, and some dissatisfied with more than one. The next slide, we asked people just to get a sense of what kind of broadband do they have currently. And so if you see the most prevalent among our business respondents was cable. That's typically a faster internet vehicle than DSL, the number 2, which is typically one of the slower ones. That's the one I've got. But this is just helpful to sort of get a sense of what sort of types of internet they're using to get online. And next, we broke down that particular question. This slide, it's a little busy and it may be a little confusing, so I'll tell you what we're showing here. So this shows that if you, how a particular internet type or source is distributed across the townships in the county. So for example, in that last slide, we said, there are 32% of people that have cable internet. This then shows those cable in the yellow, where the cable users are in a particular county. So it's not showing, for example, that those 3 bars are the makeup of Elmwood Township, for example. It's just saying where are the users who have cable, DSL, satellite, et cetera. We then asked what's their internet download speed, and this was a question that was in the 2016 survey. And you can see if you look between 2020 in the green and 2016 in the blue, there was some slight improvement over the past 4 years. But what you still see looking at 2020 is 56% of these businesses still have speeds below the 25 megabits per second speed, which is the federal sort of benchmark for high-speed internet. 40% have less than 10, and almost 20%, 19, or 16 rather, still have under 3. Or I'm sorry, 19% have under 3. So you can see that slow internet is still a problem in the county. Similar to that last slide, we just took those speed tiers and said, you know, people who have these particular speeds, where are they? Which township are they in? This very much reflects where our respondents came from. But, you know, if 40% have less than 10%, then you see where they are, which township those people, or those businesses are based in. We then asked some COVID-related questions and found that 58% said that their dependence on broadband had increased during the coronavirus pandemic. And so we're trying to illustrate sort of the, you know, during a shutdown, you know, when everybody's dependent upon better internet, how it affected their business operations. And 37% the same and 5% decreased. So kind of what you'd expect. We went a little deeper and asked, were there any essential business activities that these businesses weren't able to take advantage of because of poor or inadequate internet? And what we asked, essential business activities, we gave the example of like Zoom meetings or video conferences. E-commerce, you're a business that suddenly has to do online sales, or simply just you need employees to be working from home. Is that possible? And so, you know, about 31% said during the COVID shutdown, some of those things were not available to them because their internet just wasn't up to the task. And actually, a very similar percentage said, just in general, you know, COVID aside, just in general, poor internet is holding those things back. This is just sort of a snapshot of who our survey respondents were. You know, it's overwhelmingly small business owners with 47% just one employee, about 90% with fewer than 5. So, you know, that's just kind of a snapshot of the respondents that we were capturing this information of. And then we asked, you know, where is their operation based? 63% are home-based businesses, which is what we expected from the survey. I would suspect that part of the respondents in the home base are actually also farms. So, and then this just shows the distribution of the respondents across townships within the county. So as we were starting to talk with the EDA and shape our proposal, what we got feedback is that they very much were going to ask us for what's the ROI of the project that we're seeking funding for. And so we were struggling to say, well, you know, we've got an anecdotal sense that better internet is going to translate into, you know, a more effective business. But there were no data sources on, for example, if your internet speed went up 5 megabits or 10 megabits, what impact would that have on productivity or sales or whatever? So we couldn't find anything like that. So we decided to go back to a survey and do a quick sort of mini survey of respondents who had expressed some dissatisfaction with the internet and for which we had an email address. And we basically were asking them, you know, if, you know, just trying to answer that question that we anticipate from the EDA, if you had better internet, you know, what do you believe the impact would be on business growth or on job retention or creation? So, you know, we had 68 surveys we sent out. We got about a 45% response rate so far. And so the findings of that sort of mini survey were interesting, and I think they'll help us in our application. But, you know, basically, you know, 81% said yes, better internet would help us grow. 68% it will help us retain jobs, and there was greater uncertainty about will it help us, allow us to create jobs. But, you know, those are actually sort of local and sort of current data points that we can use in the application. We also asked this small survey, you know, were any of these businesses forced to eliminate jobs? And 19% said yes. We did a follow-up question to ask about how many jobs were eliminated, and typically it was 1 to 2. We also asked the people who said the small percentage that said, yes, it'll allow us to add jobs, we said, well, how many jobs were we talking about? And similarly, they said 1 to 2 jobs is what they thought they would add. And so I'll pause there. That's sort of the survey findings before we move into.
Any questions for Paul on the findings itself? Okay, well, we'll turn now to the actual grant application, but I need to share a couple of points beforehand. We have had a little bit of a problem. Our second tower was to be located in Miller Hill, and one of the things that we asked as we were filling out the forms that go with the application was a search on the deeds to make sure that the titles were free and clear. And as you know, Miller Hill, that site is owned by Glen Arbor Township. Well, it turns out that when it was donated, there was a clause in that deed that said if the property was used for anything other than a park, that the property could revert back or may revert back to the state. So there's a reversion clause in the deed, and the zoning administrator, who has been working on this all along with Peter Van Noort, who is the township supervisor and the board, and Peter, I should say, is a member of LIFT too, so he's been in from the beginning. But they are looking to see whether or not there is an acceptable answer to that. And part of what we've looked at to satisfy that question is you can have internet towers that look like trees. They're more expensive and more expensive to maintain, but they are very nice and they're concealed beautifully and could be put down in the tree line along with the base itself. So anyone using the park area or hiking in the park wouldn't necessarily even know it was there. So that's something that's being examined, and also looking at the fact that Miller Hill has great potential, not only for high-speed internet service for the community, which we'd really love to have it, but also for 911. As you've heard Matt describe before, when our first responders or our sheriffs are in their car, they have really a good internet capability to communicate. But when they're out of their car using the radios, even downtown Glen Arbor, not to mention places like Miller Hill, it's spotty. And that's difficult if you're helping a victim and you've got to say, pause a moment here while I run to my car and communicate with what I need. So it would help 911 dramatically. We didn't emphasize that in the grant because, as Paul said, this is a business-based, but it would help anyone in that area and it would help enhancement of 911. However, we're not relying on that. We're looking at several other options in case Miller Hill just is a no-go, and it may be. So at the same time, I've been in discussion with Greg Julian at Casson Township, and we're looking at, and Matt has been involved in all of this, we're looking at potentially raising the height of the Miller Hill, Maple City Tower. And Matt is looking at projection as to what that would do in terms of ability to extend broadcast capabilities. We're also, I talked with Tom Ulrich, who is the deputy superintendent at the National Lake Shoreline, and he said it's very common to have trees instead of towers, or I should say towers disguised as trees in national parks. In fact, they welcome them because it enhances communication for the park people. And he said you cannot tell, he's seen a lot of them, you cannot tell the difference unless you're right up against them. And so they're not a real adherence. The only problem with that is the process for approval. And that may be long and involved, so that might be something that isn't an option. So we're exploring all of those right now, but no matter the location, it doesn't change the premise of the grant. So we felt it was important today to go forward and review the grant and have you have an opportunity, now that you've been looking at it for a couple of weeks, to ask any questions, to make any suggestions, to express any concerns. The only thing that's changed in the one that's before you today than the one we've been looking at that was sent out a couple weeks ago, is that there is data that Paul updated that came out on job loss. Those figures just came out, and so we did include that in the grant. And then in the very last page, there is an appendix that we will be adding, which actually are, we'll call them testimonials. They come from the survey. They're comments from people that we thought were very telling about why they were unhappy with their current internet service. So with that, let me turn it over to Paul, who I have to say we owe a great deal of thanks, because Paul has taken the major role in writing this grant. And also I want to shout out a huge thank you to Matt, who's been very involved, to Ty Whistle, who's been reviewing the grant, to Jim Mardenhagen, and also to Elise Crafts. These folks, we've poured in many, many hours over the last 3 months. And then Paul has done a masterful job of putting that into a very sound application. This before you. So with that.
We were going over some of your charts. One missing piece is the, unless it's hidden within those charts and not named specifically, is the increased residency that will be based on, we had high-speed internet available all over Leelanau County. So many more people would be able to relocate to Leelanau County. We hear that all the time. I want to move there, but I can work from home, but the internet isn't good. So, there is that side to this. And I don't know if you heard that in your surveys or if you asked for it.
I think in some of the comments that are at the back of the package, we had business owners say this would help us be more competitive, attract employees.
Not talking about new businesses. These are people we're not seeing today. These are people like someone I know, their daughter has a home-based business in Grand Rapids.
Right, and would relocate here.
Come up here because mom and dad moved up here and they want to come up here, but there isn't anything. So there's going to be, she's coming up.
Right. We didn't specifically, yeah. So.
No, that is a good point by me, Mr. Chairman. That's a very good point, Commissioner Lautner. And I will tell you that I get a lot of calls, not just one or two, a lot of calls from individuals who are moving into the area. I've had people call me who were about to build a house or buy a home, and they discovered that they didn't have internet, needing to know the status of internet. And this is all over the county, from Northport down to Empire, where I've had calls. So it's a really good point, and I don't know how we get a handle on that exactly, except anecdotally that, there's a lot of inquiries about it.
Well, a lot of us will be second homes. They're still working in Detroit. A second home is up here. So they may become permanent residents.
Yeah.
Rather than. So it's going to, it could change the landscape of the county. We just need to be aware of that what we want to do.
Any other questions or statements?
Well, the only thing I would change in your very first presentation, you spoke about the how you worded it exactly, but the result of the virus. And I would say that what we're dealing with is a result of the reaction to the virus. That's the only thing I would probably change in that. Is there, you mentioned the process. So I've seen these trees. Maybe if these tree antennas are hidden within trees, they won't be quite so hideous. I'm going to say it. I've seen them in downtown cities, and they're hideous. If they're hidden in a tree, okay, maybe they're in a But how long is that process? And is that something the state just has to say, okay, we will change the clause? This property came from the state? Is that how it? Because
it was a donation. It was a donation.
A donation from the state to Glen Arbor.
To the Glen Arbor.
Was that during the whole national park?
When they were, yes, when
okay.
they were doing that.
So the state, so how long is that process you're talking about to get an approval on on a tower on that hill?
That, the zoning, some of these questions I'll pick up for, because Paul won't have the answer to. The zoning administrator, Tim Seifert, is checking into that now. He's already made a number of phone calls. We could be looking at a matter of days, or it could take a matter of weeks. Basically, what he's checking is to see, is it possible to appeal this? Because really, a tower does not change the use. What it does is it makes the park safer. So it's whether or not the argument of health and safety is an acceptable argument. But I don't see that it has to take an inordinate amount of time. It might take a couple of weeks, or it might just be a matter of a few days in a phone call. In terms of Casson Township, they meet on the 10th of August. So the proposal will be before them in terms of raising the Maple City Tower or finding another site in Casson Township on the 10th.
But that was my next point, was raising a tower, I would think would be not renegotiation with the landowner?
I can see that. The Noonans who own the tower have expressed interest in doing it already. They know that the base of the tower is already capable of handling a structure twice the size. They would be in favor.
I was just wondering, there really doesn't seem to be anything about the schools and how the coronavirus is, and that's because it's not a business, or?
Exactly. They said, they acknowledged that is definitely a secondary benefit of what we were doing, and we can mention that, but to not play that up, I guess, just because of the EDA's narrow focused.
So, and that would be the same type of thing for in-home, new businesses. We know it would enhance that, but it wouldn't, it's not really affecting businesses right now. It's future businesses we'd be talking about.
If depending on the timing of if the ISP started putting fixed wireless broadband on the towers, it could affect existing businesses. In addition to, as you said, make it an attractive place for other new businesses to start.
Commissioner Ansel.
Are all the locations that we're considering close to existing fiber lines? We're gonna want fiber running to the towers. Or, how far is the existing fiber trunk to each of those locations? Do we have an answer to that?
Matt, can you answer that?
It is it's in our interest to identify that for these sites. In working with Grand Traverse Band and other fiber providers, they haven't named exactly where their runs are in relation to Miller Hill property. When it comes to the other sites, we have to first identify those sites and get approval before we can say how far they are and how long it would take to get fiber to those sites.
So we don't know today where the fiber trunk lines are, is what you're telling me?
No.
No, the most we know are plans. George McClellan, who is the IT director for the Grand Traverse Band, has shared with me what their plans are. Now, those plans, and he has money to do what he wants to do, but it has to be approved by the new council. So plans don't give you the answer. We did put in costs for running fiber.
Well, the cost is directly bared on how far you're from the trunk.
Right. Right.
The further you go, the greater the cost is gonna be.
And we just did that for Miller Hill, but as Matt said, we do have the price in for Miller Hill. But as Matt said, if we have to get through the agreement that we will be able to use any of the other sites, then we can add that into the grant, which is why you don't see it there now, except for what it would be from Miller Hill. And I think, is it the fire station, Matt, that's the closest from Miller Hill?
There is fiber to the fire station. Running up, we may be able to hit, come down Dunn's Farm Road or Crystal View Road or whatever it is, and then run up the hill. It all depends on what the direct line we can run. If we can go up the hill, it saves a lot of money. If we have to fish around
go up Miller Hill Road, it's gonna cost more.
So that is one item that'll be finalized as soon as we know, yes, Miller Hill. Then we'll change that figure in the grant and make a determination. Now, it may end up costing less than that if we're able to finagle another way, but at least we'll have the amount in covered. So, and likewise for the other sites, once we know it's a go, then we know we can work on that. It's complicated, I know.
Commissioner Long.
I can't bring it up right now to pull you all to the paragraph I read, but it spoke about contracting with an internet provider to bring fiber to the towers. But I think it said singular. So I'm just wondering how that process, I wish I could pull it up because I read it exactly, but how that process would work. So would all the internet providers have an opportunity to bid on all the towers or one of the towers or et cetera?
It might have been singular because one of the towers would be here in the government center and there's already fiber to the existing tower. So we know it's just a short distance. So it's the second tower, or the Miller Hill Tower, that we need to know that distance to the
Well,
trunk.
we don't have fiber to make the city tower, do we? Not yet? We don't
Not
have
yet, no.
fiber to this tower. We don't have fiber to Mitchell Tower,
Not
Leelanau
ODNet.
Tower,
We do have fiber to the sheriff's office,
right?
which would run right through where the proposed tower site's gonna be. So putting in a junction there would be relatively easy.
And I will say that the EDA requires competitive bidding on any equipment that they provide funding for through their grant process.
And for this particular grant, we just focused on the 2 towers, not all the county towers, but that is certainly,
Okay.
it would enhance all the county towers, but then we'd need to know that distance for all of them.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Redenbach.
Yes, I live on Miller Hill, and I would estimate that the distance from the bottom of Miller Hill Road and 675, which is the Crystal View South Duns Farm Road, is approximately 1.5 miles to get to the township property. But there's other privately owned property on Miller Hill, and have any of those properties been considered?
Not yet, but they are still in the offing because that was the next one suggestion you made. So we are going to shoot for that. And I did bring it to the attention of the zoning administrator that might be something that we would be looking at and that would have to go through the planning commission most likely. Now, I did meet with the planning commission as part of our part of the Leland Internet Futures Team presentations that we started before COVID hit. And we did talk about the need for internet, and they were supportive of whatever they could do within the law to make it work for their community, knowing of the problems that exist for residents there.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Ansari.
So we don't have enough information today to
Approve it.
to fill in this information. So what are we doing here today? We're just getting an update and more to come later.
What you're getting is an opportunity to review it, because as I said, the premise of the grant does not change. To give us any feedback that you think should be in there. What's going to change is the dollars, the location of the towers and the dollars. But that's it. What you see is what we're going to end up with. And so I just wanted to have an opportunity to review it so that it isn't unfamiliar to you when it comes back in a final form with dollars in and a location. And that's the only thing that'll change.
So what is our timing here? When does this grant have to be submitted for?
The grant is a rolling submission date. We were moving quickly on it because we know we have quote a shovel-ready project in that sense. this community and the county has been involved from the get-go with many of, well, with a number of the county employees serving on that. We have done all of the groundwork to apply for this grant. Many of the applicants are going to be asking to do surveys and things that we've already done. So our probability of having this funded is enhanced. And so we're getting a lot of encouragement from Connect Michigan, Public Service Commission, organizations, Networks Northwest, all of the groups are saying, you know, you're sitting well in a position for funding. Now, they still may not fund it, but we have a great opportunity, which is why we wanted to get it in as soon as we could. And so, you know, I don't like the delay.
Muted, I saw.
That's not mine. I don't like the delay, but it's kind of something we're stuck with right now. So we're going to push, as you might imagine, as hard as we can to get answers as quickly as people can move so that we can put this grant in.
When is the deadline for get the grant, to put in for the grant?
It's a rolling.
So there is no deadline?
There is no deadline, nope, which is a little frustrating. But we also know that dollars are being pulled back from some of the grants that are out there. So, you know, you just want to take advantage of being in a positive state and for something that's needed that benefits the community if you can, as quickly as you can. That's it.
Well, no, Tony keeps stealing all my questions. Thank you, Tony. Maybe just one final. I think there are RUS grant dollars that Jason Allen has been promoting. We're not, this has nothing to do with any of those, does it?
We have met with Jason Allen and with his staff on looking at that grant. Unfortunately, Leelanau does not really fit that grant, which is unfortunate. There are, however, new dollars coming out this summer that are targeted to broadband and in discussion with Tom Stevenson, who's Connect Michigan. They haven't set the ground rules yet, so we don't know whether we'll be eligible for those or not. So it would be lovely if we could, because we might have a second bite of the apple, but right now, this is the one we have that has the best option.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions. Did you?
Well, my final comment is I hope we can get this through at you know, without the matching actual dollars. If we can do it with the tower and get that done, this is all good and well and good. But, you know, in the past, Leelanau County's thrown something like $30,000 at getting internet into this county, and we've never been awarded anything. So, that was my objection then, to throwing that kind of money at the internet, and when we just threw it away, it was $30,000 gone.
Well,
I want to see that happen again.
absolutely. And I think what we're trying to do is funds already allocated or earmarked for the new government tower.
Mm-hmm. I see.
To apply that to the match, not to ask for an additional amount. So.
And hopefully save a little bit of that money. Because the match won't cover that total cost, depending on if we have to go the tree.
Thank you very much, Paul. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
That brings us to the potential approval of Leland Township recycling sites agreements.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here today on behalf of the Solid Waste Council on a couple of recycling site agreements for you to consider. The first one is the site in Leland Township on South Pop Road. And I printed off a couple aerials. I'll just hand them over. Do you want to pass those out, maybe? Just so if you're not familiar with the site, you can see where the location is being proposed. There's a little X right about in the middle of that map, which is just south of the storage site for the Leland school buses. So Leland Township at their meeting July 13th passed a motion 3-2 to approve the Pop Road site as a recycling site and also to utilize $10,000, which is what we have from our 2% allocation from the Grand Traverse Band for any improvements that would be needed to that site. And the agreement that you have in your packet was developed by corporate counsel and has been used for other sites in the county. I sent a copy of this agreement, excuse me, to the Leland Township Supervisor and the clerk, and it's my understanding that it would be considered at their next meeting. The Solid Waste Council met last Friday, and they unanimously passed a motion to recommend that you enter into an agreement with Leland Township for that property on South Pop Road. And then also a second motion to authorize the submittal of the application and all the documents required for the permits that would be needed there. So that part, I have I've emailed the Township Zoning Administrator just to find out what do we need to submit, and it's a special land use permit, so there'll be some cost involved from us that would come out of the recycling fund in order to put together all the documents that they need to consider for a special land use permit for the South Pop Road site. That's the first one. The second one is one with a private individual, which is in the unincorporated village of Leland, and the motion that was passed on that was to set up temporary sites. This is a motion by the township to set up temporary sites in both of those villages, Leland and Lake Leelanau, as soon as possible. And this site came forward. It's on the corner of Oak Street and South Edwards Avenue. The corporate counsel drafted this document based on about a 9-month time period, and so that is put into the agreement as well as a difference in the compensation. And that would be a site that would only require a land use permit, is my understanding, because that one would be ready to go. It's in a commercial district already.
Well, it's my preference because that we move forward with this motion first, because I think that's the easiest one. So I would move to approve a recycling site agreement with the owners of the property at the corner of East Oak Street and South Edward Avenue in Leland, cost to come from Fund 230.
Second.
Commissioner Ansel.
I'm a little confused here. We have Leland Township and Leland both going to have recycling sites?
Well,
Is that the plan?
That is the plan.
So you're putting two recycling sites very close together.
The one in the unincorporated village of Leland is being considered as a temporary site. And the reason that that one came forward is that they're not using that site right now for parking. They usually use that for the overflow for going to the islands. It's not being used, so it's available. And that site, granted things change for next year, wouldn't be available next summer, but it is available right now.
So,
But it would be temporary.
Is that meant to be used until you can get this other site working? Is that, I'm trying to understand why we're being asked to approve two sites.
Mr. Chair.
I think Patricia might be able to address that better than me.
Yes, Joy, that is exactly the answer. Right now, with COVID, there's such an increase in recycling materials because everybody's ordering online and getting boxes, and there's a great reluctance for people to travel any further than they have to in terms of getting out and about. A lot of people, particularly in our township where there's a higher percentage of seniors, are staying home. And so, this would provide an interim site until the Pop Road site was finished, completed, and ready to go. And when American Waste came out and looked at it, they said it was perfect, it doesn't require anything. The road commission has been notified, Insufficiency has been notified, there's been discussion with the zoning administrator, and documents are being provided if needed. But it will be a temporary site until such time that Pop Road is open and able to take over.
Commissioner Wall.
yeah, so actually this is why I wanted to make this motion first, is because I think it's easy. It is an easy site. And this is where we have been pushing that township to actually get a site. It's in Leland. That's where we need a site. So I hope it ends up becoming a more permanent site or somewhere right around there. That's where the Pop Road, I really appreciate Solid Waste Council coming up with a plan there, but I'm a bit like you, Tony, that we've got one right down the road at Sutton's Bay. There's one in Shelbytown, if there's one in Leland, you got one in Solon. Is it really necessary to have one much more difficult to get to, or at least more out of the way? Perhaps it won't be difficult to get to, but yet not down in the commercial district of like Leelanau, which is much more logical to me. It seems like that's where it ought to be.
A question for Trudy. If we take the second one first, is there reluctance on the part of the site in Leland to take that on if there's not hopes for a permanent site on Pop Road? I mean, is Leland just agreeing to a temporary site? My understanding is a temporary site would not work next year because of parking issues.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well, as even with the owners, is that this would just be a temporary site. And perhaps next year, you know, in the off-season, maybe it would be available, we don't know, but it was supposed to be set as a temporary site. And Pop Road was to be the recycling site.
So I'm not opposed to switching like Melinda has suggested, but I do believe that our first obligation is to find a permanent solution. And the Solid Waste Council unanimously has presented us with that proposal, so I think we ought to take that first. And then if we approve that, then let's go with the Solid Waste Council's recommendation for a temporary site while we're getting that ready. So I would prefer to take the first motion first.
Mr. Hanson.
My understanding was there was some discussion about curbside recycling. Can somebody enlighten me what's happening with curbside recycling in that area?
Yes, I can. I've been working with the zoning administrator on this. Basically, American Waste would not be interested at this point in time. I know Trudy can talk to the efforts of the Recycling Council in trying to address curbside, but that's a couple of years off in terms of the approval process and everything that she would have to do, or the council would have to do. Right now, we're trying to see if we can have an agreement with a private hauler, recycler, who would pick a small, a couple of pilot areas in the Leland and Leelanau townships to see economically if it was feasible for them to do this. It's going to be, there's nothing coming through the Recycling Council. It would be a straight arrangement between those individuals in Leland and Leelanau that might want to do this and might be willing to pay separately in an arrangement with this private company. So it's not, we still would need a permanent recycling site there for individuals who wouldn't want to do this or in case this doesn't work out. But this would just be a pilot. And it's in the beginning stages. I can't even say that that's greatly promised yet. It's very early in discussion.
Go ahead. So the plan is to have everybody pay, just like they have been, across the whole county for, recycling services at the recycling sites, wherever they happen to be. And then anybody that wants to do curbside is going to pay in addition to the household hazardous fee.
Right now, yes. That's the only way we have to go right now, until the Recycling Council can work through the process. And Trudy could speak to that more. I know that there's been discussion, but until something can change.
I would like to hear that process.
For the curbside, what we've done is officially started the amendment for the solid waste management plan. All those documents have been submitted to the state, and the next meeting, I think it's September, will be the start of actually reviewing that plan to consider changes to it, including curbside. As far as cost, we've looked at it, there's not enough funds in the budget to cover curbside in communities under what we currently have and what the vote would be for in November. So, you know, it's out there, it's an idea, it will be discussed, but we don't have any plan for it at this time.
And previously, when we had the discussion about curbside recycling, you were going to get back with us and let us know what the split out would be for the recycling versus household hazardous waste and stuff, and I've never seen that information. Has that happened? Have you split out those costs?
We're working on some of those documents right now. The recycling cost that I've pulled up, and this is just going back through 1 year, so I need to go back and average it out a little bit more. But the recycling cost itself is about 65% of our budget. And then it goes down from there, the household hazardous waste and electronics and tires taking up the next part. Yeah, but the recycling is the biggest cost of the budget.
I'm sure it is, but, you know, the agreement does not have anything in there to say, okay, if you go to curbside recycling, you don't have, and you're, you know, so, because you get a lot more recycling. Everybody acknowledges that if you go to curbside, recycling increases.
Are you talking about these agreements before us today?
I'm talking about if you're signing a local agreement with whoever, you know, in this case, Leland Township, for this recycling site. And if they want to go to curbside recycling and they elect to do that, there's nothing in here to say how much they will not have to pay.
No, there's not.
You know, you're just basically saying for 5 years, you're gonna pay everything, whether you do curbside or not.
This agreement is the same as what's been used on all the other sites, and there's a 90-day.
That was my objection all along.
There's a notice for 90 days if they want to get out. We don't have those numbers. We don't have any numbers from any community yet that this is what we figured out will cost our citizens for curbside, and can we talk to you about any changes? We don't have any of those numbers yet, so I can't give you an answer to that.
You don't know how much it costs to run the recycling sites? You don't know how much it costs?
No, we have, no,
You should have all that information.
no, that's not what I, that's not what I said. We have those numbers. That's not what I said. We have those numbers. We don't have numbers from communities saying, we want to do curbside, say, in Leland, and here's what it's going to cost, and can we talk to you then about, you know, what you're taking in under the recycling fund and what it might cost our citizens. So we don't have anything from any community yet saying that they want to go in that direction and here's the cost.
My point is, you should be able to tell us today exactly how you are spending the money you collect from the taxpayers. This much goes to this much goes to the recycling.
It's all in our budget.
This much goes to tires, this much goes to household hazardous waste.
It's all in our budget. It's all broken out by line item.
So you should be able to tell us that, you know, if it's 65% of the
Well,
total, then if they go to curbside recycling, they don't need that fee.
Well,
how much are you going to give back to them?
I think we're getting off of
this. This is my problem. You want the cake and you want to eat it too. You know, you want 5 years worth of revenue, household hazardous fee, sorry. But you don't want to encourage people to increase their recycling by going to curbside recycling because you refuse to tell us how much.
I'm not refusing to tell you that, Mr. Ansorgi.
I'm sorry?
I'm not refusing to tell you that. It's in the budget. It's broken down. I've just said that the recycling costs 65% roughly of our entire budget. And, you know, we will continue to look at the curbside recycling and see what we can do moving forward. Today I'm here on 2 recycling site agreements on behalf of the Solid Waste Council and seeking your approval on those agreements.
Commissioner Rettbach.
There has been a motion made to approve the site for Oak and Union, and it was supported. I would hope that we would be able to move forward and have a vote on that.
Was there anything else?
No, I'm in favor of the proposal. It's with a private operator. It doesn't have anything to do with an agreement with the township. And it's a temporary location and I'm in favor of it, so. That's it.
Commissioner West.
Yeah, and I support that. I wanted to say, as Commissioner Ansari was talking, we have heard from Trudy how much it costs. We have reviewed that data. The budget's published. Nobody's hiding any information. And this agreement can be terminated in 90 days if either party wants to do that. So I'm not sure that I understand the objection that Commissioner Ansari has raised.
Commissioner Rush, did you have something?
I did. On this so-called temporary site, Trudy, are there any financial improvements that we will incur?
It doesn't appear so at this time. The township, or excuse me, the owners will submit the land use permit. We will need to get some signs out there. It's gravel based. And so at this time, we've been told that, it's ready to go, that the bins could come in.
And when you say temporary, what's the timeline on that? Projected? What do the homeowners, what have they agreed to? Did they give you a timeline, or is it just wait and see what happens down the road?
The document was written for a 5-year time period, as the other documents were, with a 9-month per year. But again, they have 90 days they can get out of it. So this allows an option that if this works out and they want to use it again, say, starting next fall, that under this agreement, we'd be able to do that.
So the contract is written for 5 years with this private company?
Yes, and they have a copy of this, so we'll find out if that's acceptable to them.
What is it currently being used for now, parking lot for?
Yeah, it's overflow for the visitors that go out to the islands, but they're not going to the islands now, so it's available. The site is available.
Do they have a contract with somebody for this? For the overflow parking?
It's their property. It's their business.
Okay, it's their business.
Commissioner Sue as well.
That's good.
Sorry.
So, basically, they're letting us use this parking lot. We don't have to put lighting in. Are they gonna plow it in the winter?
If we're using it in the winter, that's part of the agreement. Yep, that's written in here. That's part of their cost.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I really like this idea that in Leland. I mean, as it is, they're, is it true they're dumping the bins in Sutton Space 4 times a week?
They're taking those out every day.
Every day now? So that's, I mean, and constantly there are cars going into that. I mean, it's constant. Every time I drive by there, there's 1 or 2 cars pulling into Sutton Space, and many of them are from Leland and Lake Leelanau. So to get it in Leland, I think would be a tremendous asset. I mean, you're hoping you can get another one in Lake Leelanau itself. And I'm thinking if in Leland, once they get used to it, I'm hoping they'll put one in maybe Hancock Field or put it in Meadows Bay or someplace that right there in Leland, if the Grosvenors decide they don't want to let us stay in their parking lot anymore, which if they ever dredge the harbor at North Manitou, then that it would go away. But I just think that this is a great thing to get it right in Leland for the time being. So, and I appreciate all the effort that Commissioner Sudas Little has put into this to try to get this there. I mean, I've talked to Susan Ock myself and had several conversations about this thing with them. But, I'm just really happy to see that this is happening. I'm not, and I know we need a permanent one there. And I'm just hoping it stays in Leland. I don't really, I mean, I think we're gonna end up with Top Road because they don't want to put it anywhere else. But that's, to me, having it in Leland is right now the best option and would really encourage them to keep it there. So, that's the way I'm looking at this.
Commissioner Answer.
Could I hear the motion again, please?
Well, the motion is for the recycling site on Oak, what is it, Oak and Edwards Avenue in Leland. It's a parking lot that's, I believe it's owned by North Manitou Transit. Or
North and South Manitou
Yeah.
LLC. It's 4 owners.
Go ahead.
Are we doing it for 9 months, or are you doing it for 5 years, for 9 months per year? That's what I'm trying to get clear.
The contract says, I believe, 5 years, but they have the option of 90 days. So in May, if they want to take it out, then they got 90 days. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
I mean, that's my interpretation of it.
Now, they usually use the overflow lot between the end of May and about September.
Right. So they might make it in March or something. But anyway, any other questions or statements? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. Motion passes 6-1. Thank you very much. Judy, do you have one in Lake Leelanau? I didn't mention that.
No, we have looked at a lot of sites, not only in Lake Leelanau, but in Leland over the years. Got close on a couple sites, and then it didn't work out. Some of it is just the location. They're a little too tight for what we need. And so we've continued to look, and Pop Road, there actually was a recycling site at this Pop Road location years ago. And the agreement you have before you is one that came about after the Solid Waste Council recommended it to you, and the Township Board passed it on a vote of 3-2. We are working to get trail cameras. I believe there'll be a trail camera type device put at the sites so that we can monitor them better. And I think that would be good for these materials that are left that should not be left there. We've actually been very successful in getting some pictures from citizens who have not confronted someone dropping materials off, but just took a picture of the car with the license plate. We turned it over to the sheriff's office and they followed up on it. So the trail cameras at these sites would be very good, I think, to deter people from doing that. And then we do send out letters whenever there's any materials left outside where we have a label. They get a letter right away from our office letting them know it was left there, it's not acceptable, and we give them kind of the instructions. So we continue to follow up on that to deter people from doing that.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
I move to approve a recycling site agreement with Leland Township for the township-owned property on South Pop Road with costs to come from Fund 230.
Support.
Commissioner Answer.
Did I hear you say you're gonna put cameras at all the sites?
We have contacted, not on these 2 sites, but all of the other sites, we've contacted the owners to find out if they have cameras already and they want a camera or not. We have a school that already has cameras, so they don't want one, but we've pretty much had a positive response from everyone else.
Commissioner Lott.
First of all, I want to say I really appreciate all the work done, because I know firsthand the difficulty that we've had trying to place recycling sites in both Lake Leelanau and Leland. My only concern is that we did hear objections this morning to the site based on what the intent of Krugmont Pond natural area was. So I'd like to find out a little bit more about that before I support this motion. I don't know if the charter or whatever has been changed since all that began or not, but I just don't know about these up and out of the way sites. I think they're, even while they're cameras, it's just asking for the dumping. And I saw today, I believe it was overheard in Leelanau County where somebody, I forgot the name of the road, so he's dumped mattresses alongside the road in Leelanau County. And at least inside of a village, there's more eyes, there's more traffic, there's more people to see somebody do that. Even Cedars is in Solon, it's outside the village, and we're getting a lot of stuff dumped. So a camera might help, all we're gonna be able to do is catch them after the fact. Hot road, I don't know, but maybe it would work the same. If there's cameras up there, that's the only way it's going to work is with cameras and enforcement. I'm just afraid it's too remote. So that's my concern.
Commissioner Sulis.
Let me address a few of these things, since I've been working with Trudy and the Recycling Council and the Township board members on this for a while. If you look on a map where all those recycling sites are located, there's nothing really near Leland, Lake Leelanau, with the exception of Sutton's Bay for Lake Leelanau, and Centerville. Everyone, all the other townships really have easy access to at least one site, and sometimes two. So Hawk Road was first considered from the standpoint that it would serve not only Leland, Lake Leelanau, but also it would be a convenient site for folks from Centerville as well, who didn't go down to Cedar. So that was kind of a beginning thought towards it. However, it does serve well from a couple of standpoints. One, the land is level, the drain commissioner who's been there, his informal, not formal, comment is that he doesn't see any problem with the drainage. It is shielded by trees, which may make it more remote for dumping, but it also decreases the sound. It has ditches either side, so you wouldn't have to have cement curb and gutter put in. Also, the buses are located right there. All the school buses, the Leland Township does lease property to the Leland School, and it's all paved. That's where the septic system is as well, and the sewer system is as well. And that's quite a large area, and we're talking immediately south of that, so right against the fence line. But that area has lighting, so it would be easy to have the area lit if needed. And it also, there'd be very limited amount that would have to be done in terms of grading or anything else. American Waste has looked at the site, and they think it would suit their purposes very well. Excuse me. The way this works, Trudy has been working with the zoning administrator, and when she provides the site map and all of the documentations that he wants, it will go to the Planning Commission. So the concerns that Mr. Mikowski had in terms of the opportunity for public input and hearing, that will be held. So this process, this is the other reason why we needed the Leland site, so we could get that going right away. But it gives an opportunity for everybody to have input. The impetus lately came from about 7 dozen people, apparently, who signed a letter requesting that the site be used. I will tell you that in Leland, there are a lot of people who don't want to see that site in Leland either, because it is in a residential area, like some of ours are in other locations, so that there's pushback. In fact, the people who own the property got a lot of pushback, and I so appreciate their moving forward with this, and on a temporary basis, given that. But there will be an opportunity. I did speak to the Planning Commission a few months ago, and they're familiar with this site. So there are some other issues, but the zoning administrator isn't going to let it go forward unless legally it meets all of the requirements of the law, and concerns will be addressed. So I just wanted to kind of toss that out in terms of the pre-work that had been done on this site and why it was being considered at this time.
Commissioner Lutz.
Thank you. Looking at a county map of that area, the most logical to me is a permanent site in Leland. And I wasn't going to bring up Centerville, but Centerville Township could have helped alleviate some of this problem too, when they could have taken the recycling site at their township hall, and they wanted nothing to do with recycling. They just said, no, thank you, we'll just keep dumping it in Solon. So there you go. So, you know, Centerville is dodging, you know, that whole bullet. I appreciate the people in Leland residential area that don't want it there. I can appreciate that, it's temporary. But if we find that we're satisfied with the Pop Road, we can move forward in a month from now, or 2 months from now, correct?
Yes, I wouldn't, if you don't want to do it now, I wouldn't advise that we go down the process of work on applications then, because that's going to cost money, and wouldn't want to start doing that if we don't know that you're in favor of doing an agreement with the township.
So Trudy, help me out here. We currently have identified a temporary site in the heart of the community. This particular site, I would assume the owners of the site prefer to have the temporary site during their off-business season, correct?
Yes.
So that would be like, what, September through May?
Well, we haven't specified the months with them, but yes.
No, but I'm just, this
Yes,
is a conversation.
Mhm.
I'm estimating or guesstimating
Yeah, I would say that's.
a September, October, November, sometime in the fall until May, which is the bulk of the year. Commissioner Bunnick mentioned that there is a lot of traffic down in Sutton's Bay with recycling that comes out of Leland. Is that what your guess is? And so actually, we would have 2 sites that would support the people in Leland and Leland Township. If this were to become a permanent site, we're only looking at a couple months out of the year, possibly that could be used by the owner, where the people in Leland may have to go down to Sutton's Bay.
You're saying if the site on Oak Street became a permanent site?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know if that will happen or not, but yeah, I guess it's a possibility to talk with them about it.
A year site.
It's a 9-month site, so you got what, 3 months? During that time, what would it cost to have curbside recycling during those 3 months? Maybe there is some sort of a pilot program that can be initiated to serve the residents curbside during that time. Maybe it's a once a month pickup. It appears as though that we've got citizens in that community that do not want to see that type of development in that natural area, and I can understand that. And as Commissioner Lettner said, it's a remote area. And just so my fellow commissioners understand, down in Elmwood Township, it is also a residential area. So if people want recycling, they're going to have to give them one thing for another.
I guess part of the reason I'm really, especially having it in Leland, is that there are getting complaints about the dumping, and that's why I said I thought it was 4 times a week. But the people in Sutton's Bay are getting tired of the noise of those big machines coming in, emptying those containers, the clanging and all that. The neighbors right behind all have, asked that it be moved, and that it not be dumped so often. So if we can alleviate that, hopefully we won't lose that site in Sutton's Bay, which would make things even worse. So we really, that's why I've really tried to encourage that something happen with Leland Township or Cleveland Township. Because I thought it was happening 4 times a week. Now if it's 7, it's just gonna be that much more compounded when those people are unhappy about the noise. So we have to realize that there's an effect for having it in a town, And this way you wouldn't have, even it's in a commercial school district. So in Leland, that would be in a commercial district where they're having it. And that's why even like down at Nettles Bay, there's not many residents there. There's a golf course all around it. So the noise wouldn't be as bad, but I don't know if they'll ever allow that there. Just like Mr. Mikowski said, they want to bring that all be in Lake Leelanau, so Leland doesn't have to be bothered by it. So I just think that the one site, especially even at Pop Road, is going to be a tremendous benefit to Suttons Bay. That's what I see, and to Leland and to Lake Leelanau. So even if it's, it's already got a sewage there. I don't know how much more you could pollute something than putting, a sewage pond there.
Pollute some more.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's why, and now they've got buses parked up there, so they've made it a commercial area. I mean, in my mind. Commissioner Rettenbach.
Thank you. We've been working on this I've been on the Solid Waste Council for 4 out of the last 8 years, and we've been working on this Pop Road site, and we're finally at the point where we can go ahead with it. It makes so much sense. It doesn't matter where the sites are located. As Commissioner Lautner brought up, people dump mattresses on the side of the road. You're still going to have people that will inappropriately leave materials at any of the given sites, and we hope to diminish that by making it more convenient for legitimate recycling. So I think that the Pop Road site has been vetted, so to speak, and we'll continue to go through that process with the Planning Commission. I'm so happy that we have this opportunity now. And also the people from Centerville, it'll be closer for them. They won't have to go into downtown Leland where there can be a lot of traffic. And then the noise from the dumping could be more irritating to the residents. So Pop Road, that wouldn't be a problem. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate hearing from one solid waste council member, and I know we have another here, and I thank David for coming today, and I suspect part of the reason was this is on the agenda. I wonder if we could ask David to speak to the Pop Road recommendation from the Solid Waste Council.
Well, I think that Trudy and staff and Solon have done a great job making it available to us. And if we need the site, we need the recycling, and it would be a shame to have Suttons Bay shut down because of a 7-day activity there that's detrimental to the neighbors. It is a lot of noise and it's a lot of clunking and stuff. So if we can get the temporary site and the Pop Road site, Trudy and staff have done a great job. The Township's done a great job. Your Little's done a great job. And I think it would be in the best interest of all of us to approve it.
Thank you.
I'm just making a humorous comment here that welcome to what Elmwood has been putting up with for years.
So I'm gonna ask that we now vote on this. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 4-3. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there's one more motion to move forward with submitting the necessary documents for a special land use permit.
All right, Commissioner Rettenbach has something. Go ahead.
Yes, I move to submit the required application and all required documents to Leland Township for the necessary permits for the Pop Road site. Following completion of the documents by staff, cost to come from Fund 230 and the 2% allocation funds.
Second.
Okay. I thought we just voted on that, didn't we? No. Okay.
No, they only did the first part.
Okay, that's right. All right. Are there any other comments here? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, the same sign. The motion passes 4-3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other things, we move on then to the government campus tower update.
Good morning. All right. So last Friday, I was able to provide you with a overview and breakdown of the proposals that we received from the RFP process. And if we start out with the proposal from Tower Communications Expert out of Illinois, this proposal came in quite high. Looking into their company, they are rather large. They have large project management teams that undertake these kind of endeavors. I believe that they would do an impeccable job with this. Their proposal and their methodology was rather vague. It was a lot of mission statements and this is our motto and whatnot. Outside of the specs of the tower, there wasn't a whole lot of specific detail for the project. Their references, they just had some of the points of contact that they've worked with in the past. I'm not going to belittle any of the companies that are there. The in-flight internet company sounded pretty intriguing as far as that project is concerned. And they did seek a proposal from Sabre Tower. We do currently have Sabre Towers owned by the company or owned by the county. So I would vouch for their structures that they have. I was impressed with the loading and the resistance of the specs of that tower as well. And proposal would be good through November 6th. So moving on to the local vendor, Grand Traverse Engineering and Construction. Interestingly enough, they are owned by the economic development arm of the Grand Traverse Band. So they do have ties to Leelanau County, if you will. They were very specific in their methodology of construction and undermining this project. They would have a couple different 4-person teams, foundation work, and then tower assembly. And they were very specific in what they would do with the topsoil and weed barrier. And they even went on to say that they were going to clear the site of any debris at the end. Their references were very extensive, and it had to do with specific projects that they have done in the past, and a lot of them are from around the country. So a local firm that's been traveling to Texas and Georgia and Oklahoma. Rather impressive.
I just have one question. And I see that the Grand Traverse Band purchased this company. Who ran that company beforehand?
I do not know that.
Something that, like, I know it used to be there was the Martin family that did towers. They did all the big ones around and highly respectable and knowledgeable. So that's what I was hoping to find out who this company was.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I do not know that.
Okay. And we did not have a Martin bid, so I don't know if they're still in business.
I'm not sure. From this proposal, there was an absence of an actual tower company. So I would assume that it is something that they handle in-house. So if they were still, like you said, Martin, I could see that being part of the whole project. They did have the specs and the loading for the tower. The base itself, the foundation was larger. However, some of the wind load was a little less than what the Sabre Tower was. And that led me to do a little research into what the average wind that we would see around here. Unfortunately, the only historical data I could pull was from Cherry Capital Airport. And for my own curiosity, I went back to 2015, and the high wind in August was not reflective of what we had in Leelanau County. So I was a little disappointed to see that. So right. So I felt it was important to put that wind loading in there as well, so the commissioners had an idea of what we could expect wind loading wise for the tower. But yes.
Let me ask you in regards to that. What would it take to beef up the wind load on the tower? And do you know?
A lot of that would be extra bracing, so it would be an extra cost of steel and whatnot. A lot of that, whenever there is that kind of loading, it would require that extra bracing on the cross members. And since it's not a guide tower, a lot of times they just increase the thickness of those guide wires. But that's a different kind of tower.
I had a similar question, because when you get down to, it looks like the equipment we're gonna put on these towers, 2 pieces, I think. Do these rates take into effect all the equipment we're going to put on these towers?
What equipment are you referencing? I'm sorry.
There's something in here, but we're also going to be putting other internet providers are going to put their equipment on these towers too. But it's somewhere spoke about 2. It seems like it was 2 pieces we will put, or maybe they will put on for us.
Would that become the load?
It would contribute to the load, yes. All the equipment would.
And the question is, did they take how much additional load? But the way the structure is constructed, how much additional load could that tower support, I think is your question.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Right.
And with that said, how many outside vendors would be allowed to access the tower, and what level of load? You know, whether it be 1 or 10.
Right.
What's the excess load level?
Right, and the specs of the towers that were provided to us, they would do the maximum loading that would be allowed at all those elevations for the 5 co-locations.
Allowed by who?
As by the tower, what the tower can hold.
Okay.
So they would say, you know, at the 184-foot level, it can handle this much equipment, and they listed specific antennas and how many of those it would be. Typically, when we talk about AT&T and Verizon, they're using that, 6-foot antenna that they have 3 of them on each side of the tower. So if they call them sectors, there'll be 3 sectors of the tower, and they'll have 3 antennas per sector. So when they're talking about those specs in the diagram of the tower, that would be the maximum loading. And obviously not all carriers are going to have the maximum loading per elevation. So how much more it could hold would very much depend on what equipment is on the tower at that time. Both of those proposals did have equipment at the top of the tower, which would be owned by the county. If we wanted to put a microwave dish from that tower to the central tower, for instance, we would be able to do that. But as far as it's both these towers are designed to handle 5 co-locations up to the maximum loading that the tower can handle at those elevations.
Is it true that the closer to the top you get, the less load you can have?
Yes, to a degree, yes. And if there was a need for strengthening, that's where the cross-member reinforcement would come into play as well.
And that's something that we can do over the course of time?
Yes.
So it's not something we have to start out with?
It's not something we have to start out with. Whenever we do the structural analysis for the tower, the engineer would come back and say it passes or it fails. And it fails because of these cross members are not good enough, and we recommend you reinforce them.
Well, that helps us lay people who don't know that much about towers. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt.
Commissioner Ansel.
They're designing it for 5 co-locations in addition to the county-owned equipment that will be on the tower.
Yes.
Is it 5 cell company loads?
Based on the equipment that they had in their specs, yes, it would be consistent with cellular
So if we
equipment.
only have 2 cell companies, and we could have a lot more smaller ISPs out there there would be room on the tower from a load capacity.
Yes, and they wouldn't necessarily have to be limited to the 184 foot. They could be down to 135. And we could have multiples within that area too.
Just as background, I did some research. They were privately started in 1979, as Matt pointed out. The tribe acquired them in 2014.
Who had them in 79? Find
Yeah,
that
I
out.
tried, I could not find them.
I want to know.
Commissioner Redenbach.
Yeah, I just had a question. I think what you're looking for today, Matt, then is for us to go ahead with trying to develop a contract with the Grand Traverse Engineering and Construction.
That would be one option. There are some factors that come into play with that. A lot of it has to do with the EDA grant. You know, we will have a 20% match. If we wanted to go that route and utilize one of these vendors, that would be a way to go. Our tower consultant, Max Machuda, believes that the county can undertake this project itself and save some money. We have pursued other project managers, a firm, in order to undertake this so that it doesn't fall on the administrator and I to go through all the technical details and make sure that all the construction companies.
Let me provide an update now, because
Yeah.
I don't think we're ready to make a recommendation at this point, right?
No.
Yeah. So today, we're not asking for you to vote on anything. We
So
do
there's
wanna-
still-
Matt and I talked last week, we like to explore the third option of maybe taking this on ourselves. However, hiring someone to be our owner's rep. We think that may be a cost savings. These estimates are more than we anticipate they would be. Do you remember when Matt first came, he was estimated under 200,000?
Yeah, not too
Well,
expensive.
this is the
Go ahead, Commissioner Redenbach.
Well, this is why I asked the question, and I thought that we had talked about that prior to this. So I was just trying to clarify that you're not looking for us then to recommend. We're still keeping this open with further research going on. And then is it contingent on the grant approval?
Let me just follow up that. So we think we still may be able to get the project done for under $200,000. So we want to explore that option. We do have time. This is not time sensitive. Matt and I want to actually meet with the people. We had brief discussion about potential partnership to oversee this project. I'm convinced if we're going to do this ourselves, we need a professional to oversee it. It's not fair to Matt. That's not his field of expertise, nor do we have someone on staff that can oversee this project to make sure it's done properly. But still could be done that way in a cost savings move. So we're looking at that option. Also, we are still, Matt, I don't think you've heard from the 2 cell companies that are interested in potential grant.
I haven't had confirmation, formal confirmation from either AT&T and Verizon. I have had expressed interest from 2 different sources with each of those companies. Unfortunately, I don't suspect that they're going to say, absolutely, we're going to go on that tower.
But there's a good chance we may be able to get an agreement with 1 or 2 of those companies in advance. If that would happen, our payback period, let's assume it's $200,000 for sake, or even the $270,000. We think if we get 2 of those companies, payback would be, what, 3 to 4 years at the moment?
Yeah, you know, if we had the 2 cell companies, we're talking like $7,000 a month.
Per month, to multiply that out, we get our money back. Yeah, but we're not ready. We're hoping to have this ready for you at the August board meeting. But we thought you should have an update here.
I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Redenbach, did you have any more? Commissioner Rush.
When you talk about a project manager, I would like to see that person be an engineer.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yes. We're on the same page there.
Yeah, all right.
And that's why I feel strongly that we need to have a professional.
Absolutely. I wouldn't want
Matt's
to do it without.
great emergency manager, but as far as I know, he never went to school to be an engineer. And just like projects that we've done here, whenever you do a major project, always been a proponent, you hire someone that's an expert to look out the best interest of the county.
Do you have somebody in mind?
We are looking at potential, yes, but we're just at the beginning stages, so I didn't want to say that. But that's why we're today just giving you an update, and we'll put this on the August board agenda.
Have you talked to Mr. Machine about?
We have talked to a couple of people. I just don't publicize
E3s,
it.
yeah, I see somebody like E3 that ran for that, that's what we're talking about.
We're having those dialogues, yes.
Good.
Because if we can do it and save the money, nothing against these companies, but our consultant says we may be able to do this ourselves. If that's the case, we definitely need a professional engineer to walk us through it. But if we can and save money and have it done properly, and if we can get firm commitments from the two companies, even one of the companies, the payback would be very quick, just like when we did with natural gas. We're anticipating a 5 to 7 year payback. We did it in 3.5 years. But it'd be great to have a commitment up front.
Right.
And that's what.
It's a possibility.
It's, I think, a pretty strong
We know we
possibility.
got the best site, we've got the only site,
Yeah.
we know that. This is the only
It was told
spot.
to us, right?
But because of the timeline and so forth, we want to rush into this. Is not time sensitive. We do have options.
Anything else for Matt? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your diligence.
No problem.
Go ahead.
On a related topic, not necessarily just for the tower, but both for this, the EDA grant and the potential tower that we put up here, are we gonna get some good estimates on fiber connections, how much that is gonna cost?
As far as this tower, it would be relatively easy to get that. For the other one,
The reason I'm asking is, my understanding is there's 2 different trunks out here. You know, the Grandeurs band installed one, I don't know if it's still dark or not, but, you know, they got a line out there, and then whoever the other.
AT&T.
AT&T's got a line out there too, so we got a line coming up here already from AT&T.
Right.
And I don't know, in your discussions with the Grandeurs band, what their vision is, you know, are we going to have the opportunity to have a choice?
right, and we should, the delicate nature of that though, fiber connectivity to the tower is gonna benefit the ISPs. For AT&T and Verizon, they're not gonna share a fiber tube. They're gonna run their own. So if they wanted to put equipment on Miller Hill, AT&T is gonna run their own. Verizon's gonna run their own. We don't have to worry about that. But in order for us to provide that space for a smaller ISP, they're gonna need fiber to the tower, and that's gonna help them a lot. So even getting fiber to this tower, we can do that, no problem. But if Verizon were gonna put their own equipment on that tower, they're gonna run another conduit. Plain and simple.
Okay, they always do that?
Yes,
You know,
they do not share, and.
They will not share a
No.
fiber bundle?
Mm-mm. I don't agree with it, but that's their business practice.
Any other questions of David? Thank you very much.
No problem.
Appreciate it. So then that brings us to a public comment. And if you do want to call in, the number's 231-256-8109, 231-256-8109. Please call now. Well, come on ahead. We'll wait for calls while you're talking.
I'll toss out an idea. I suggest that Patricia Sue's Little donate her property to put the crap in your own neighborhood, okay? Because your people and everybody else, I think, have done an excessive amount of manipulating to make things harmful for Lake Leelanau Village community. And you township or you county commissioners that voted for this Pop Road site, in my mind, are unfit for public office because you allowed the bullying process to overtake this whole process, which is done, in my mind, dishonestly. I observed the July 13th meeting where this was taking place. I've talked to township board members and I know what's taking place. Most interestingly is your planning director knows how contentious this issue is. She also knows the kind of people that are on that solid waste council, and she knows which one of those are capable of doing some of the things I just mentioned. So I believe you have made a serious mistake in approving this site. And it has the appearances to me of a fraudulent process. And that is what we have. We have a majority of you who want to serve a majority of people and the elites of Leland. That's your goal. The elites must be satisfied. The rest of the people must be sacrificed. The small minority in Lakeland Village must be sacrificed. So you enjoy doing that. I could just see the smiles on your faces. You finally got the damn problem solved. Isn't that great? For you that voted yes, isn't that a great feeling? You subdued us, but maybe what we need is a petition drive like we did for the zoning ordinance in 2012. We turned down the zoning ordinance, and maybe we'll have to do the same thing with this process. So it may become a process that turns out to be worthless. But for you people to continue on desecrating that Cleveland Pond nature area, when the township now is planning to install bike trails, what a beautiful ride it'll be, touring the sewer plant and the smell of the lagoon and watching all the damn trucks dumping the crap out there and making it dirty. Now the township did its own dirty service to the people by allowing the bus garage and other things to go on there. But I'm telling you, county commissioners, you have made a terrible, terrible mistake today with that decision. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none and no phone calls, then we move on to commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? I would say that's Cleveland Pond landfill. It's a former landfill. So as it be a nature area, as a kid, I threw many tons of garbage up there from different buildings in different places. So it's a covered landfill, and there's a parking lot there, and so putting a recycling center there, I think, is far better than having a landfill.
Screw the people. Thank you.
Anyway, so then we are adjourned.
Time for lunch?
Before lunch, yeah.